Hey everyone, this is the Failures and Wins podcast. Today I have Mark Samuel on. He's really big in the CPG space. I met him at Expo East. He happened to be right behind me in line, and everybody was going up to him and saying, "Wow, oh my gosh, great to meet you." And I was like, "Who is this guy?" And this is Mark Samuel. This is how I met him. He has to be right behind me. And it's great to have him on the podcast. We're going to go through a little bit of his journey, how he got into this point, some failures and some wins he went through, and how he got around them. And then we'll get into a little bit about CPG and a little bit about podcasts and things like that. Mark, thank you so much for joining today.
Appreciate it. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, I love to get an intro about you and how you got into this e-commerce mess, is what I call it, because it really is an e-commerce mess. Love to get in that with you.
Well, luckily we didn't get into that mess, but I'll explain. We didn't get too deep into the e-com thing, so we didn't see what a lot of people are saying. IWON Organics was founded in 2016, and we really got going in 18 when we found our extruded snacks, which people know us for, which is our puffs and our sticks.
Yeah.
And we just been doing the do. We are considered an organic plant-based snack platform. I really call it a health and wellness platform, which you and I talked a little bit about, so that we can help people on their journey for all things health and wellness, not just food. So that's what we're doing.
That's awesome. That's great. So what was the first step of realizing, hey, like I'm an entrepreneur, this is what I want to go do? Were you in a current job and left to go do this? When did you take that first step saying, hey, like this is what I'm going to do? Like, when did you decide that?
I have done my own thing since I was 23. When I started my first company with a friend of mine. So this is what I've been doing for the last 20 years. I've done different things. The last few have been in health and wellness, which is something I'm really passionate about. I live a health and wellness lifestyle. And so that's really all I know.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. So what made you get into the health and wellness space? Is this something because a lot of people are not passionate about their products, and that leads them to eventually giving up early on. So what was the deciding factor saying, hey, this is something I'm passionate about. This is something that I want to pursue. Like, how did you find that product or that company, that thing that you wanted to really be passionate about?
Yeah, I mean, I hope that this is it. I call it, I believe it is, because I just have such a purpose as far as health and wellness.
Yeah.
And this company and the brand allows me to do all of those things. Again, I always say it's a health and wellness platform, and people say, well, what does that mean? Well, IWON Organics is a snacking platform that's sitting on something that could be a lot bigger.
Yeah.
And we talk about, sleep and other things that are important, right? Nutrition is one piece, but exercise, I talk openly about that. So I think that there's the brand IWON, there's Mark Samuel brand that likes to talk on this as well. And it all has to do with helping other people. So that's the piece that many don't have when they're starting. It's not a product. It really should be a brand, a product, and the like. They don't have that key piece to what is needed to really get through all the struggles that occur week to week when trying to build a brand.
Interesting that you're the first guest that said you really take a brand first approach. So rather than doing a product first approach and then building a brand around that product, from what you said, it sounds like a very brand first approach, saying, hey, let's figure out how we can really help people and really push out in health and wellness. And then, oh yeah, we also do products that may happen to do that. So very like brand first, product second, rather than product first, brand second.
I just believe brands last a lot longer, right?
Yeah.
You can have a product that happens, right? And it could even be a one-off product, super successful, but it's got to stand on something. It's like I'm winning on nutrition is something that's just much bigger than our puff line, right?
Yeah.
It's the foundation, it's the core piece to the business, and so I'm a believer in looking at it that way and building the brand in all ways so that people have something to think about that's far greater than just the product itself.
Interesting. So it's not even about finding a product you're passionate about, finding a category of something that you find purpose in. For you is health and wellness, and then building a brand around that purpose. That's kind of what I'm hearing. Is that correct?
That might be going a bit deep. I mean, it's the Tony the Tiger effect, right?
Okay.
Like it's what do you think about when you think of Tony the Tiger?
Hmm.
it's an emotional connection. It's not Frosted Flakes per se, right?
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
that's a really key piece that people miss sometimes. So, and that's why personal brands. That's why there's such success with personal brands. Look at all these people online who are creating success around their personal brand. It's what do people think about when they think of that person, and then it
Hmm.
just so happens they can hawk all these other things, right?
Yeah.
All the merchandise and just being viewed online, like my kids watching these other people on YouTube. Like, what are they doing? So anyway,
Yeah.
it can
Yeah.
go really deep. But yeah, I'm a big believer in brand.
Yeah. 100%. And a lot of entrepreneurs don't, especially in the CPG space, don't really see a lot of value in building that personal brand. So I thought it was, unless like I see a lot of it in a service provider space because that directly attributes like, hey, build personal brand that will equal sales. So, but you still built a very massive personal brand, even though you're not a service based company, it's CPG. So, can you go into like why you wanted to start that personal brand? What was like what made you kind of, is it because you always were trying to push brands? Like what was the reasoning for it?
Yeah, I didn't mean to. And
Okay.
I don't even know if that's really, sometimes you're like, oh my, like when people see me at the show and you're like, oh my God, look, there are people walking up. They're just walking up to me because they've seen me online, right?
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
they've communicated with me on LinkedIn and they've seen my posts and the content. That all is derived from just providing some value in some way, right? That
Yeah.
was that was my key piece. So it goes back to that original post from a few years ago when I said, I'm going to get on this platform, which I believe in, and I believe that I can provide value because I've experienced so much in so many of these things that people want to know about,
Yeah.
both in health and wellness, then in sales and in building a brand, and
Mhm.
in failure. Like I've just had so
Yeah.
many failures, right? I continue to fail, every month, right?
Hmm.
So if I can talk about that, it will resonate with a lot of people, and that's just what's happened. So it just so happens that it kind of just caught itself, and yes, I'll continue to do that and see where it can take it.
Cool. Is there any, as a CPG owner, is there any opportunity, like, is there any opportunities that you wouldn't have gotten from that personal brand that you did get, whether if it was like distribution deals or some other type? Did that build any credibility to get more opportunities in that space?
Yeah, it
It
does.
did.
We
Okay.
we we're very transparent to that. I mean, we've had retail opportunities open up because they've heard of I1 mostly through me, let's say,
Cool.
and vice versa. Maybe they heard of the brand itself, but there's been people who have contacted me directly through LinkedIn saying, "I'm a buyer for X. I've been following you. Can you
Mhm.
send me samples?" So
Cool.
there definitely is a correlation there, and it's why I tell people that if they want to, I always say this too, it can't be pushed on.
No.
If they feel comfortable and they want to engage on a platform like that, then they should put themselves out there and really just get at it.
100%. And I think that a lot of it comes down to like insecurity. Like, for example, I used to be terrified about posting on LinkedIn. And then, like, I literally was my first post is saying, hey, I'm scared to post on LinkedIn. Boom, here's my first post. And then from there on, I posted every single day. You have to first like overcome that barrier to like saying, okay, am I scared to do this? Doing it. And then getting in the habit of doing it to where you might want to do it after that because it might
Yeah,
be a scare obstacle as might be what might be in the way of that for stopping posts because you post consistently, you're posting all the
totally
time.
makes sense. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's why I think there was this short period where I felt like companies were almost pushing their teams to get on there, and I
Yeah.
just think that that's really uncomfortable.
True.
Um, being on social media in general is a personal choice,
Hmm.
and I don't care if it's work related or not. I just think you have to feel comfortable getting out there and doing that. If you do, then put a plan around it, and
Yeah.
that plan is very simple. It's just consistency. So if that to you is once per week, then do that. For me, it was I will write one post per day every day. And that was it. And I've done it ever since. And in fact, I've done 2 or 3 posts in a day. The second thing for me is I always just give people the book that I had. This is my own book. Is I do not write anything pre-written. It's always off the cuff. So
Hmm.
every morning when I wake up, I have nothing thought through yet. It's just
Yeah.
whatever comes to mind. And that has worked for me. I know other people who are even far successful, more successful on the platforms. they got courses on this thing. They're charging people to tell you how to do it. They do a lot of pre-written content and like just which is to each their own too. So that's the way that I do it. It is what it is.
And I almost recommend that because like I'm not a very like structured person. I would rather go wherever the conversation. For example, this podcast, if I were to write out a detailed list of what we're going to cover, then it's going to be very organized, it's going to be very boring. But if I do it wherever the conversation flows naturally and whatever the guest is most passionate about, then you're able to create super passionate conversations. So I'm a huge proponent of doing it like off the cuff, is what you said, rather than having it structured, because then a situation might happen where everyone's going through the same thing, supply chain, all these other things that randomly happen, that randomly come up. You're prepared because you're telling yourself like, wow, I'm like, supply chain's really hard right now, I need to prepare for this. And you're ready for it because you just do whatever's on your brain at the time.
Yeah. I do. I do this a show called Let's Eat, and I don't write up anything before the same way. I don't have interview questions. I hardly even look up the brand as far as the products, because it kind of takes away from the idea of it. I want to learn the same way that somebody viewing it would, and I want them to hear it the way that I do. It also is just fact that since I'm a founder too, and I'm interviewing other founders in the space, I know all the shit that they're going through. So wherever my questions go, and how they respond is where I'm going to flow. It's dance. You're just dancing, right? I just always say it. You're dancing. You got to get in rhythm here. You know what I mean? So
100%. Yeah, you're exactly right. And when it comes to really setting up a successful business, obviously IWON Organics is like super successful. You made a recent post about you're in the margin business, and how about it's so difficult to keep that margin. If you don't have margin, you're out of business essentially, unless you have tons of cash. And what would you recommend with this huge supply chain issues that everyone is going through, inflation driving up the cost of goods? What do you recommend for someone that's trying to keep that margin and like where they're really struggling? Is there any recommendations that you have there?
number one is we're not wildly successful. The internet is very forgiving, I guess is what you would say. I don't know. We're going through the same thing that many others are. It's a very, very tough business. We have not gotten to the scale that we want to be at. It's going to take years to do that. So if we have a chance to do that, hopefully we'll quote unquote be successful. But the industry is fraught with a lot of bullshit, and much of it is reflective of just that. You think people are doing very well. I don't really. I can't count on my hand how many are doing really well. And what I mean by that is those that have really, which comes back to your margin question, those that have true financial fundamentals in the business. Those that let me retract the word understand, but those that have a proper unit economics. I don't know of many who do. So it's a really, I go back to this, it's a really tough space. It's a really tough business. And correct, inflation and supply chain issues and the like have created a worse scenario than what it was before. The difference is today, the financial markets have tightened up. So that's what's really squeezing on it even worse. It's why there's a lot of brands going out of business. You just haven't even heard of it yet. And a lot of us are on the cusp of the same thing. It's just reality. So I hope there's an answer to you that's a lot more forthright that people should really be listening to. I mean, it is what it is.
Yeah, 100%. Is there any other issues that are arising that you think that will happen in the future, or that are it's a big problem right now that might be a good tip for an entrepreneur, either that is at full scale like you, or is at, I'm not saying full scale, but like you are at scale at least, and like, what would you recommend to those people? Do you have other future tips that may happen in the future, or a good tip that might be good for the present right now?
We have distribution is what you'd say. It's not full scale, but we have distribution. Like if you were to say, hey, where are you at? And I named some of the retailers, you'd be like, oh, wow, you're across the country. And we are, and we're super lucky. We're also super lucky to have a consistency online business with Amazon that continues to grow on its own. And we're also super lucky. We have a really great product. I can say that with full arm extended away. you could just, people who eat our snacks say these are amazing. So because we have that, we're still in the game here. I would say that most don't really understand the relationship with the retailer and as far as the financials that are involved there. So when you use the word scale, that's where people get in trouble. So because if you were just some small company that was at your local farmer's market and you were selling product, you're probably cash flowing. You have a cookie, you made it for $1 in your kitchen and you're selling it for $2. You have like no overhead. It's beautiful. There's no promotional expenses. There's no G&A. Like, it's a great business. But the minute you say, I want to be an XYZ retailer and not just your corner store, I'm talking about that you actually want to quote unquote scale, it's very expensive. There's slotting involved and there's a promotional calendar that you're basically required to be involved with where you are slashing your already non-existent margin. And I say non-existent because going back to basically the basics of our business right now, not many have really strong gross margins. The reason being, one last piece, is because of basically we call them the manufacturing brand relationships that have now gotten a little bit tighter, and I don't not say soured, but there's just a lot less really strong, consistent win-win scenarios, and there's nothing wrong with that. I don't take that away from from the manufacturer who also is operating a business and wants to earn their margin, but it comes in the way of the brand and where they thought they were going to go with scale and reduction in costs and the like. So I could go on for days, but it's a big topic.
Yeah, I 100% agree. And when it comes down to really setting up your like building out your team and hiring, the huge labor shortage right now, that's a huge thing for a lot of entrepreneurs right now. Is there obviously, like, you have a lot of people under your team that are really, really good in order to be at this level? What are some ways that you found of really hiring a successful team that you found that are successful to you and really building out your company?
Well, we have a small team, so
Really?
compared to these others, and I've been very lucky. I have the same team that when we started. We've added two people since the beginning, but I've always been very fortunate when it came to teams, both at this company and my previous ones. And it's not a testament to my leadership. It's probably a testament, though, to the fact that I'm one of my assets is I'm really I'm able to paint a vision and have a real purpose within that vision that people can grab onto. The second thing that I think I'm pretty good at is I leave people alone, and I let them run their own business within the business. That's the whole idea of hiring anyway, isn't it? It's like the cliche thing, which is they should be telling me what to do. And I'm a huge believer in that. I don't hire somebody in operations for me to tell them what to do. You tell me what to do. I don't know shit. You tell me. But as the founder, I need to know where's the ship going and why is it going there. And I can articulate that fairly well over and over and over and over again. And through all the muck that comes with it. So as far as other people, and I actually am in disagreement as far as the workplace scenario here. There's a lot of great talent out there right now, like a lot. If I could, there's a lot of people that I would be picking up right now. And I for those companies that have the ability to hire right now, there's so much great talent. Now, where there is a shortage is in areas that are not necessarily in what we'd be hiring for, like in manufacturing. So like work staff. Right, in production, things like that. In those areas, also those areas of the country, they're not like in metropolitan areas. Like I'm in the San Francisco Bay Area. They're in different areas of the country, right? So they're having tough times to not only hire but keep people on because those people would prefer, not to work for the amount of money that's being offered to them. That's my comment.
100%. And I love how you said about how you work for your employees. And I'm a big believer in, yes, like telling them telling you what to do, but at the same time, understanding what they do. So like I always ask my employees, hey, please, like when I did have my business, hey, like please teach me what you're doing so that way I can understand and communicate it better. For example, video editing. When it was really important for me to understand that so that way I can communicate it better, saying rather than just saying, hey, this video isn't good, I don't like it, and sending it back, I say, hey, no, this transition is the reason why I don't like it, and now I'm able to communicate more effectively on what that position is, and now I can actually do it better and be a more effective communicator. So I used to always ask my employees, hey, please teach me what you're doing so I can learn it and communicate it better. And that sounds like basically what you're doing in this case of like saying, hey, tell me what to do. I'm happy to do it for you and help you out, essentially.
Yeah, I just they're running the show in their own department. It is what it is. They're not getting a check-in from me. I mean, if
Mhm.
anything, they're just telling me what's up every so often, right?
Yeah.
That's how you operate in my view.
Mhm. What is your status of, obviously these are very independent people that you're hiring and they're obviously going off and doing what their own thing. How do you create that effective team? Obviously you trust them. Obviously, like it sounds like you trust them entirely. So that's probably why you have an effective team. What are the ways to, I guess, as check in with them at the same time as making sure, hey, like what's going on? Is everything okay? Type of thing, like checking in with them. And also making like giving them ultimate trust is like a balance between like, I don't want to say micromanaging, but basically like managing versus like 100% trust. Where do you kind of fit in that of saying like, hey, like where do you kind of balance that out?
I'm probably at one full end of that spectrum. I
Really?
just give 100% trust. The only way that that's broken is if they aren't accomplishing what you hired them for,
Yeah.
and you'll know.
Yeah.
So if they are, why are you getting in the way? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's not always as easy as that sounds, but it's when you set the precedent that that is how this is going to work here, that
Hmm.
that is how your position is going to be, sort of handed to you.
Hmm.
You run with it. And if anytime you have a question, concern, issue, you come to me. If not, go build your career here
Hmm.
and build this thing that, this piece of the puzzle that you have into something really amazing. You never realize how awesome people are until you let them go. If you're reining them back all the time or you're just a jerk off, you suck,
Yeah.
right? Anyway,
Yeah.
I mean, that's just how I look at it. So
Mhm.
it's again, I guess it's easier said than done for some others, for some, and it is what it is. But whatever.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. And like, as long as like, how do you get that initial? How do you know they're A players? Is basically what I'm asking. Is like, how do you know? Is like, okay, that person's good. That person's good at what they do. What is it? A gut feeling? What's that indicator saying? Okay, I want to bring them on, and I'm going to trust them completely. Like, what is that indicator?
That's a good question.
Hmm.
Again, I've been really lucky, I guess. I
Hmm.
just have a good touch on people.
Hmm.
When I meet you and the way we're talking and rapping and doing our thing, I'll know if you're. I do. I'll know if you're the go getter or not. Because
Yeah.
that's what makes up a lot of it. Is, are you a go getter?
Yeah.
Are you a person that's more inclined to say, Mark, I got it, or hey, I need help on this?
Mm.
If you're the former, again, I go back to this saying you can do so much. You really can do so much in your career and wherever you're going to go. I've said this before. I, I do bring up the way that I like to be communicated to. It
Hmm.
doesn't come up often, but for instance, if I say something via email to somebody, I like when somebody says "got it" or "I'm on it"
Hmm.
or "taken care of," like 2 words. I love that. But that happens in action. And once you get a rhythm like that, and they realize, oh wow, this guy really trusts me, or you could be a woman. So this woman really, you could take things so far.
Yeah. No, that's amazing. That's amazing. So basically, it sounds like you just have that gut feeling of like, okay, yeah, like the way the conversation goes, it's like, okay, this person is really motivated. He's going to really go off and do its own, is basically what I'm hearing. Is that right?
Correct.
Cool. Awesome. And like when it comes down to really, so we covered like how to cover your like effective team, how to really find a go the brand first route and then product second route. What are what are some other like what are some failures that you went through that were pretty big for you, and how did you navigate them? So like is there like a place where you were in a really tough spot, and you like what were some failures that you went through and how did you navigate those?
I mean, I've had businesses that don't work where I've started them and I've gotten them to a specific point and they just don't have that, they don't have the engine anymore. It's not even about me anymore. There's, when I say engine, it's they don't have something within its core that's going to keep driving it. And there's no pivoting, or people like to do, or creation of something new within that vehicle that's going to change anything. And so that's, failing like that and that's how most would look at it, is is a godsend if you apply it, the learnings from it, and move into something new. That's
Mhm.
why also when you hear of people who are like, just keep going, or, it's right around the corner. They've never done it. They've never been in the thick of shit before. They don't even know what they're talking about. It's overly used, and it's awkwardly used often. It's not the go get them and no, one more try isn't about that. It's actually, if anything, you know where you need to put that thing down, put that toy down, and use those learnings from the what has happened to move into something else, to quote unquote keep going.
Mhm.
And there's a lot of value in that. I'm a big believer, but that's by God's grace that you even have an opportunity to do something new. Like
True.
me, I mean, I just had the opportunity. It could be, to go on and do something else. That's just by God's grace. Many of us don't have that opportunity, and we got to go, start a new career or whatever it may be, something that we don't even really want to do. And that's just life. So I'm very, very empathetic to that, and all the different stories and experiences that we've all had that may or may not allow us to do things that we want to do on the next go around.
Yeah, and like that's so true. Like I'm thankful for just literally food and water, like because other people on the other side of the world don't get that privilege of having like I have a bottle of water right next to me, and it's like that easy for me to drink. A lot of people don't get that opportunity, and like as long as I'm able to live my life every single day, like I'm happy. Like I don't push for like extra cars or whatever it may be. Like I'm just here to like really I'm a big believer in that, like, hey, we're alive, we're like, and like to God's grace, like, hey, like we're here and we don't deserve to be. So a lot of really thankfulness out of that.
We are all very lucky. If you wake up in the morning and you're healthy and your kids are healthy, I mean, you can't really ask for more than that, right? That's a starting point. Then everything else falls behind. And I say that with a lot of, again, empathy and understanding of just the differences that we all have. The cards that we were dealt are all so different, right? And a lot of people don't realize that, and they talk sideways. They don't recognize what life is like for some people. But if you do, it absolutely um, makes you a better person.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, that's that.
Like, and you're so right, because like if you really dive down to it, the human brain is literally designed to, when we accomplish a goal, to always accomplish, like, to after we accomplish it, to become normalized to it and then look for something else. Like someone can work their entire life for Olympic gold medal. Once they get it, now they're working on their second one, their third one, and it's just an unending cycle of chasing satisfaction and never reaching it. And you have to realize that, saying, "Oh, this is what we're programmed to do," and breaking that apart and just saying, hey, like I'm thankful for this bottle of water right here. Like, I'm thankful for this. This is all I need. And like, you really have to break that up and actually like dive into that rather than endlessly chasing something. Because you've probably seen founders all the time where they just endlessly like go for million, billion, like $1 billion companies, and they push for that and they end up killing themselves for it. Like by working so hard. And like we have to like really be grateful for what we have and the businesses that we have built, and then that way you can actually like love life and work rather than like really just dying working throughout this entire process.
Yeah.
Yeah.
To each their own is what I say. I'm a big believer. You're doing whatever makes you tick,
Hmm.
and it is what it is. I will say that I just hope that most do it with health in mind, and that's
Yeah.
why I talk on it. That's what our platform is about. It helps a lot of founders. I know that for sure. And I just anybody in the thick of employment, right, or your career. This is about is leaning into health first and making that your priority, because all those other things, the stresses that come with them, um, are only handled properly if you put your mind and body in its right position.
Hmm.
So
Yeah, I 100% agree with that. And I wanted to go into the balance between giving up or not. So you said when like you said the engine is no longer there with inside the business, and how do you know? Because obviously you had hurdles within your company, right? Like that happened within that, but then you still knew like, hey, this is something I need to push through. How do you know the difference between, hey, this is something I need to keep pursuing, keep pushing hard and working toward it, and rather than saying, hey, giving up, putting down the toy and then trying something else? How do you really justify the differences between there that goes inside someone's head?
well, I mean, I1 would be a great example. I should have given up like 400 times. But the platform that we have here is growing. That's number one, this health and wellness platform. Number two is there really is an opportunity for doing what we are as far as in the marketplace. So having a true organic, better for you snacking platform is still there. I mean, there's a lot of brands out there, but the what we're doing and the products behind it actually have a fit. There's a consumer there and there's a void in the market. Going three is like we're moving to no seed oils. Like it'll just keep going and going. And so, because I believe in those couple things, and then I'll couple it with something that's very important. It's something I mentioned before. We have a really great product.
Mhm.
And again, I've had shitty products before, not just with on I1. I'm talking about just in my career. Like I had a shitty product. I know it, right? We have a really amazing product in our core products, which are our puffs and our sticks. It's a great product,
Mhm.
and they're nutritionally better for you, and they taste amazing. They're
Mhm.
not transparent about it. I don't even snack. That's a whole other story, right?
Uh-huh.
I'm a believer in whole foods. I talk about that openly, and this is a snacking platform. Is the journey to try to get to eating as many whole foods as possible. That's a
Mhm.
whole nother separate story. So that's what good looks like, to keep going. I can keep going. Now, what bad or what should you when should you stop is, and there's no more engine in that vehicle, is when maybe you have something where sales have plateaued. You have product line within your brand and the sales have sort of plateaued or flatlined or started declining, and you have nothing else to give it. There's
Mhm.
no other product that fits within that vehicle, right? You don't have the innovation or ideas to have a product fit in the vehicle. So there's nothing else to give it another kick, you know?
Yeah.
And when you get there is when you know, all right, this thing is going to wind itself down.
Mhm. Okay. Yeah. I think that makes a lot of sense. That's really helpful. Is there anything else that you wanted to make sure that, hey, you've been wanting to communicate that's been top of mind lately? Whether it was from a LinkedIn post or anything lately that's saying, hey, this is the number one thing that entrepreneurs and founders need to be thinking about going through the future. Is there any other tip that you have left there that you want to provide insight on?
I would say that mental health
Hmm.
is something that I've been talking more and more about it. I think it needs to be really top of mind for people today. Um, there, we are in a really crazy funk as as humanity. I don't know. I mean, I could point at the 25 different things over the last 10 years, but we are definitely on a decline, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
And we never have treated ourselves well when it came to physical health, both physical as in exercise, and I call it physical as in nutrition. We know that we're we're a super obese country, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and um, and that's scary.
Yep.
It's scary because we don't treat ourselves well, and we're also dealing with things that we haven't seen before, like social media, and the usage at an all-time high, which is a complete disaster for most people. The way they use it and what they use it for,
Mm-hmm.
and just the way we treat one another, mainly because of things like social media and media in general, creating such a divide among us, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'd say that that's a pretty scary scenario to be in. And so mental health is something that we need to be very, very cautious of and help one another to try and find solutions, which go back to what I've been saying, which is leaning heavier into health and wellness as a core principle for yourself, and then trying to figure out how to remove all of this shit that we have in our face all the time. Maybe
Yeah.
even this. Somebody might hate seeing my face right now because it's coming up. I don't, whatever. You're not going to offend me. I'm just telling you how it is.
Mm-hmm.
Social media is really ugly. And I feel bad for my kids. And I hope that something comes of it. There's somebody out there or somebody's out there who are going to create things to offset the bullshit that we're dealing with. So if you wanted to know what I was thinking there is what I'm thinking.
So I'll be the devil's advocate there,
Okay.
saying like when it comes down to it, we are the ones that are constantly looking at the content. And I used to be addicted to TikTok. I used to do it 2 or 3 hours a day. And I was like, okay, I got to take a break. I don't have 2 or 3 hours a day to give to a social media platform. So what I started doing was I started dedicating to more knowledge base. So now I go through YouTube and I watch about like an hour ish about a YouTube a day. And through like knowledge, like I'm learning new psychological things, how the brain works, how biology works, like more about the world. And that's allowed me to see more beauty in the world through knowledge. So I will say that there's a huge advantage from social media of being able to understand new knowledge and concepts about the world and going off and do their own thing. Now, you are right about how it takes the like a individual like strength to take away and not be go into these like particular niches where you're like where you are divided. Yes, I do agree with that. It does when you get into super deep niches, they will get divided in there. But you have to realize that we're not listening. We're like if someone else talks about the other side, it doesn't matter what political side you're on, no matter what, we're not listening to each other. Like we're only listening to the people in our own bubble. Even though if they did cross contaminate, even if we did put all these people in one place, on the social media platforms, they would just hate each other because we're not listening no matter what happens. So it's more of a listening thing that we're not listening to the other side anymore, and that's a human thing. That's not a social media thing, in my opinion. So I love to hear your thoughts on that.
Say that to a 15-year-old, right?
Okay.
And so that's the problem. I mean,
Yeah.
you said even you were scrolling for 3 hours. Like, you're 15 and you're scrolling, and you're also seeing your buddy or your girl, and your girlfriend is doing this, that, and the other, and like, oh, well, look at her and look at it. It's not healthy.
Yep.
And the thing is, the stuff that you're watching or potentially watching, that's fantastic, and you're educating yourself and all that. That's beautiful. Let's also not forget that you can put out anything on the internet today, and nobody filters it. No, at least not that we can prove, right? You go back to politics and all that stuff, and nobody's filtering it. You can share the information, and it could be just a straight up bullshit.
Mhm. Yeah,
That's scary. That's scary.
you're
Um,
you're
it's
right.
and, you know, I mean, we could talk about this for days, but I'm an optimist at heart. As much as if somebody saw this, they'd be like, you don't sound like an optimist. I mean, you sound like the world's gonna end. I don't want. I'm an optimist because I like to see the good in everybody.
Mhm. Yeah.
And I hope that the person that I walk by on the street is a good person. That's why I say hello, right? Which we
Mhm.
don't ever do anymore either. Can't even freaking open up a door for somebody these days. Like, you know, just
Mhm.
it's just we live in a really, 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 really new universe, and we got to get a hold of ourselves here.
Mhm.
And try to reverse this spiral that we're in. I wouldn't say before it's too late, but
Mhm.
man, like I said, I feel bad for my kids if this is the trajectory that we're on. It's not a good one. So
Yeah. Yeah. I totally agree with that. So yes, that's all we have time for. Mark Samuel, thank you so much for coming on. Please tell the audience how to find you, where to connect with you, where to get your content, where to find your products. Please.
IWON Organics, you find us online at Amazon or Thrive, and the website as well. And then retail, we're Whole Foods and Sprouts and Vitamin Shop and um, Kroger and a lot of cool stuff. You can find our store located on our website at iwonorganics.com.
Cool. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for joining today, and thank you everyone for watching. This is the Failures and Wins podcast. Talk to you guys later.